Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and thanks for watching. So those of you that know me, you know I'm all about testing lenses out, using lens sharpness tests, doing real world tests. I'm all about getting the sharpest pictures that I can get with telephoto lenses, and that includes zoom lenses. I spend a lot of time reviewing 150 to 600 lenses quite often, and I've always wanted a prime lens but could never really afford it, because many of you out there probably wish you could afford some of these super prime lenses. You know, I know Canon's brought out some recent new ones such as the RF800 and 1200, but they're beyond the realms of most people being able to afford them. Anyone that's not that wealthy certainly can't afford them. So you are forced to look at alternatives, and one of the alternatives I was looking at was the EF300 2.8 Mark II L lens. So that's a 2.8 aperture, which means in low light situations I can obviously get high shutter speeds. I can put a 2x Mark III extender on, it gives me 600 at 5.6. And I can also put a 1.4 extender on that gives me 420mm at f4. So this is a fantastic lens that I picked up for a great price of £3,000. Now I had a bit of money saved up that I put towards it, but yes, I'm going to have to spend a bit of time paying the bill off. However, it's an outstanding prime lens. Now a lot of you guys will be thinking, why didn't you go for a 500 f4? Mark II that you could pick up for about £5,500, or why not a 600 f4? You know, which you could probably cost quite a bit more, maybe £6,500 for an EF version, or £13,000 for the RF version. Many of you guys that know me, I'm all into my telephoto lenses, so I've got the RF 600 and 800 here, 100 to 400 Mark II EF lens. I've got obviously a Sigma 150 to 600, and those of you that follow me know I'm always testing telephoto zoom lenses, but I've always wanted a super telephoto lens like this, and while it is a little bit of a compromise in terms of focal length, I'm getting literally the same aperture that I do on the 100 to 400 Mark II L, which has a 5.6 aperture, but that's only 400mm, while this is 6. And the versatility of this is it's very compact. So what you can do is you can literally take the extender off, pop that in your camera bag. Obviously you can reverse the lens hood, or if you get a large enough bag for it, keep the lens hood as it is. If some of you guys wondering, did I ever get the issue resolved regarding the lens cap? Yes, they sent me a brand new one. So, you know, thanks a lot to the seller for doing that. I appreciate that. Because initially it said it came with one, but one didn't turn up. So I think they must have got it from Hong Kong or something like that, because they had to clear customs. Anyway, that's a nice thing I've got now that'll protect the lens. Yeah, and this is probably the lens I really wanted. Yes, I was considering the Mark I lens, which was a good £1,000 cheaper. However, I think just for £1,000 to get something that is slightly better in image quality, but has 4 stops of image stabilisation versus 2, newer lens, looks nicer, better condition than any used lens, and there's no risk of ever getting any sort of fungus on it in the short term. If you buy an old lens, you know, there's always the risk that the optics have been scratched, or you've got fungus growing inside the lens, and that's something that you do not want to deal with, because that's an expensive repair, and Canon will even touch old lenses now. So if you can afford a newer lens, buy the newer lens, so at least you know you've got some support from Canon for that. Yeah, I've got other lenses, and I'm looking at going to downsize some of these lenses that I've got, because I don't think having all these lenses is a good idea. Yes, it looks nice having all these lovely lenses. You know, I've even got a 70 to 200, 2.8, which I never use. Having these lenses is fantastic, and they're nice to own and think, I could use any of these to go out. The problem is, I can only use, realistically speaking, 2 lenses at a time. If you've got 2 bodies, you're going to have probably a lens on each, and it's going to take you time to swap out lenses on those cameras if you've got these lenses with you. And then it's always a risk having lots of lenses, you know, someone could, you know, steal them. I'd rather have that money and put it towards this. And also, there's rumours that the EOS mirrorless R7 is due to be released. Prices that have been talked about is around £1,600. Now, the 90D when that came out was around that, and then it dropped to about £1,200 about a year later. So, my advice, if you're considering the R7, and you think £1,600 is a bit too much, wait 6 months and that'll probably come down to 1,200 quid. But yeah, this video isn't really about the different lenses I've got. It's about talking about this prime lens. So essentially, you've got 3 stabilizer modes. Stabilizer 1, which is basically all axis, up and down and side to side. Mode 2 is for panning. And mode 3, despite what some people think, it's not for erratic subjects. Mode 3 is basically, it saves on power. So generally speaking, when you're using your lens and you're tracking something, the optical stabilizer, or image stabilizer as Canon call it, is constantly working. Now mode 3 saves on that, where it isn't actually on until you actually press the shutter, and suddenly, bang, the stabilizer comes on and it reduces on your power usage. So obviously it has stabilizer on and off. You obviously have focus presets. You know, these telephoto lenses have buttons on them where you can set a certain place where the autofocus focuses to, and that's useful. And it also has an audible button and a set button. And something I didn't comment on a previous video that I made, obviously you do have the I think it's 52mm, yeah, 52mm drop-in filter, which is great for using ND filters, polarizers, that sort of thing. And then you have autofocus and manual focus switches here, and your focus limiters. Now focus limiters, especially in wildlife and sports photography, is incredibly important. If you know that your shooting distance is some distance away, you don't want it using the full range of autofocus from, say, and obviously another thing I've not mentioned, the minimum focus on this lens is 2 meters, and that's really good. That's better than the Sigma 150 to 600s. It's not as good as the 100 to 400 Mark II, because I believe that's under a meter. However, 2 meters minimum focus is fantastic. It's great. You probably won't ever need that, but it's there if you do. But I want to talk about focus limiters. They come in really handy, especially if you're focusing some distance away and you don't. And if something was to come into your shot, into your view, you don't want it focusing on that thing that's closer. So that's why focus limiters are fantastic. So this has 2 meters to 6 meters, 6 meters to infinity, and full. So quite often, if, for example, if something's far away, you can set up your limiter from 6 meters to infinity, and that's great. Incidentally, on the RF lenses, they tend to be slightly longer. The RF 800 here, in terms of its limiter, is a long way off actually. 20 meters to infinity on the 800. On the 600 it's a bit closer, so you've got 12 meters to infinity as well as full for both. But yeah, the reason people gravitate to these L Prime lenses is they are tack sharp. And when you put an extender on there, while it degrades your image a little bit, it doesn't impact on your image quality greatly. However, if you're using a zoom lens, that obviously, while it, you know, Canon zoom lenses are incredibly sharp, even their L lenses, you know, the 100 to 400 Mark II L here, very sharp lens, yes, but they're not perfect. You know, they don't tend to be that sharp in the corners, and the prime lenses are fantastically sharp in the corners. But we will have a look at image quality of the 300 2.8, and we will compare it with the zoom lenses that I've got, and even the RF lenses, and have a look. But I just wanted to talk about these lenses and you know, and tell you my reasoning why I went for the 300 2.8 lens, because it's an incredibly sharp lens. It has super autofocus capability, and I'll be honest with you, with the 2x extender on this lens, it's comparable in focus speed to the Canon 100 to 400 Mark II L lens. Now, in the past I've said the autofocus performance on the 100 to 400 Mark II L isn't that super fast in dark lit situations like forests, where it's quite dimly lit. But if I was to compare them in terms of autofocus speed, they're pretty much comparable. So I don't think you're losing much in terms of autofocus speed with the 2x extender. But again, this isn't a comprehensive test. I'm just giving you my thoughts. We will do comprehensive testing in the coming weeks. When the weather gets a bit warmer, I'll be able to take these lenses out, and we'll do some real world testing as well as some lens test charts to have a look at the 300 2.8 lens and see how sharp is it, and do you lose anything using extenders on it. But to be honest, with my brief testing that I've done in my living room and in the garden, I think the autofocus with a 2x extender is really good. I have no concerns at all regarding the 2x extender. And don't forget the if I can get that on this, yep. The 1.4 extender performs outstandingly well, even on the 100 to 400 Mark II L lens. But I did think when I put the 2x on this, it did slow it down quite a bit. I've not noticed that slowdown, if I'm honest with you, with this setup. So it is a good setup. So if you can get hold of one of these lenses for between £3,000 and £3,500, go for it. You won't be disappointed. The only concern is, do you get a large bag for this lens that would fit, say, a 600 f4, if you want to have it fit in your bag like so, or are you prepared to take off the extender and reverse the lens hood? Because obviously I did test out one of those low pro cases for a 300 2.8, but it was too small. So we're looking at getting a more expensive case for this particular lens. Unfortunately, they're not that cheap, especially the low pro Trekker ones are. But I just wanted to talk about this lens, and let's just have a quick closer look at the controls as I've just talked about, so you can see it close up, and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay. Right, we're just having a closer look at this lens. I just want to talk to you about it in more detail and tell you the controls on this lens. So here we have a stabilizer mode switch, 1, 2 and 3. Mode 1 is for any axis. Mode 2 is for panning, and mode 3 is when you press the shutter and that turns the image stabilizer on. It saves on battery power rather than it being on all the time. We have a stabilizer on and off switch here. Then we have focus presets. As said, there's a button there. There's 4 of those on, and you can adjust your presets by just moving that and toggling your presets that you've saved. And what that means is it allows you to set focus points in your location
and it's a good way, especially on the mirrorless cameras, on forcing the camera to focus in a certain place. And obviously we have our set button there for that, and focus presets off, on, and audible noise you can set it to. Over here we have the brilliant tripod collar, which does have clicks, if you can hear that, and it allows you to have landscape and portrait, and lets you know when you're actually in those orientations. And then obviously here is the tightening knob, and there is a Kensington lock. If you pull that open, you can actually lock this. Here we have the 52mm drop-in filter holder. You can have polarizers, ND filters there, and it means they're not expensive because they're quite small. And then obviously over here we have autofocus and manual focus switches, and then our limiter. So our limiter is very important, as I've just talked about. So we've got 2 meters to 6, full, and 6 meters to infinity. So that's the majority of the controls. I just wanted to describe to you how they work. So here I've got a little box, and this is the normal tripod mount that would go on there. It's quite small. What I was able to find was a cheaper alternative, which is longer and bigger, and it's Arcus Swiss compatible. Now it is called a Hayao LFC468, and they retail for about I think it was £40 this one was. So, you know, if you want something substantial to actually grip and hold and be sure that it's not going to slip out of your hand, because I was a little bit concerned with this being so small. That being so small, it could potentially slip out of your hand. Another thing that's useful about this lens is it has mounting points for the strap on both sides, which means having that strap around your neck. It also comes with a nice strap, and I'll just show you the lens cap. This is the hard lens cap that comes with it. It is available for 200mm, 400mm DO lens, 300mm 2.8, and 200 to 400 f4 I believe that is. And these are well made and well padded. You know, will protect your front element. You do want to protect your front element. So essentially that's the strap that comes with it. I just want to explain the various controls on here. And before we wrap up this video, let's just talk about the lens hood. So let me just detach that and show you that. So here is the lens hood. It's more of a composite carbon fibre material with rubber on the ends. It has a nice locking switch here. Unlike the older lenses, I don't know if you've noticed that here, but you can see that's black, a black metal. In the older lenses, it was actually a painted surface, and when you locked this onto the older lens, if you can see that there, that's the locking mechanism, that actually scratched your lens. So it's a good thing that they've made that black so you don't see it scratching the lens. And this is plastic, not metal. The older lenses, I think they were metal. But these are well worth keeping and protecting and looking after, because these will set you back between £500 and £750. So be very careful about losing this, because that's an expensive replacement. So I just wanted to show you my lens, just to tell you a bit about it and show you the various controls. As for the the tripod mount replacement that I managed to get, you can get that off Amazon. I got this for £40, and all you have to do is untighten the Allen key screws, and put some new ones in, and that will securely lock into place. But I just wanted to talk to you about my lens, and you know, just show you how it works, and then in future videos I will do some image quality tests and we'll see how sharp this lens is. But I just wanted to say a big thank you and thanks for coming to the video, and have a nice day, and hope this video was informative. Thank you. Bye bye. Remember to like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.